What about these fossils that we find? And we do find fossils all over the world. Here's a fossil ichthyosaur. This is a marine reptile, thought to be extinct today. At least we haven't found any living. I always had the impression that fossils took millions of years to form. Well, this organism, whatever happened to him happened quickly. Or actually, it's a her because she's giving birth. You see the baby ichthyosaur being born there? They're born tail first because they're air breathers. God thought about that. You know, they're not born like other creatures where the head comes out first, the tail comes out first, because as soon as they're born, they have to swim to the surface and get their first breath of air. That's a neat design feature. Wonder how long evolution took to figure that out. Needed to turn it around. No, that's not going to work. Not going to work. There's in the lower section there's a fish that's buried in the process of eating another fish. Now, I don't think that took millions of years. Whatever happened to them happened quickly. I mean, the ichthyosaur was killed, buried in the process of giving birth. It's fossilized now. See, people think that things die and then they slowly become a fossil over millions of years. Most things don't become a fossil at all. And let's do a little thought experiment here. And I've been picking on dogs, we'll pick on cats now. So let's do an experiment on our dead cat, Earl. We're going to watch him slowly fossilize over millions of years, right? So don't touch, leave it alone here. We want to wait a little while. Well, what you end up with day 3 is a very smelly dead cat on the grass. And on day 9, you end up with a very smelly dead cat on the grass. And on day 20, parts of Earl are missing. And on day 38, more of Earl is missing. And on day 65, Earl's missing. And you know that because we've seen animals that have been killed and left on the side of the road. They don't just gradually turn into statues. That's not what happens. They're gone after a while. They get picked off by other animals, scavengers. They decay. They're recycled back into the environment. You see, in order to get a fossil, you have to bury something. And even then, I was given the wrong idea that the fish dies, it sinks down to the bottom, and then and it's slowly over millions of years covered with sediment, one layer after the next. No, wait a minute. If it took millions of years for the sediment to be deposited, then why didn't the fish decay? Right? You have to bury something rapidly to get it to fossilize. I mean, if it's just partly buried for millions of years, the top part would decay, it'd be picked off by scavengers. Most fish float when they die anyway. So that's not going to work. That's not how you form a fossil fish. If you really want to form a fossil fish, here's how you do it. You go home to your aquarium, and you dump some concrete in there. This is still legal in Colorado. I'm not sure about here. That's going to bury him. It's going to kill him. It's going to bury him immediately. Usually there's enough bacteria left that they have the ability to eat away at the soft tissue of the fish because it's dead now. But the bones permineralize. The minerals move in and fill in the holes in the bone. That's what a fossil is. It's a stone that looks like a bone because it's been permineralized. And that's how you form a fossil. It doesn't take millions of years. We can do it in a laboratory in days. It doesn't take long. It just takes the right conditions. It takes flood conditions to do that. What about the kinds of fossils that we find? Do they illustrate evolution? Because you'll see pictures in textbooks, the evolution of the horse. And, of course, we have no idea they have the stripes on and everything. We don't know what the skin looked like, but we do know what the bones looked like. And that looks pretty convincing. You got that little horse evolving into a big one, but wait a minute. These are horses of different sizes, aren't they? And, well, the foot structure's a little different for a couple of them. Okay. But that's variation within a kind. What you have here are different varieties of horse. You say, well, they're different sizes. That's okay. We have horses today that are different sizes. These are both adult horses. They're just different breeds, you see. And so that's not a problem. We have lots of different varieties of horse today. We should expect to find some in the fossil record that have gone extinct because their variety wasn't conducive to survival in their environment. And yes, some in the past had different. They didn't have the single toe. It was divided into 3 or whatever. That's fine. They're still horses. What you don't find is a non-horse changing into a horse. And that's very consistent throughout the fossil record. There will always be a handful of disputed specimens. We'll say, hey, we think we found the transition between this and that. But generally, the transitions are from one variety within a kind to another variety in the same kind. Something that's perfectly consistent with biblical creation. But don't rocks take millions of years to form? Here's a set of car keys embedded inside solid rock. I don't think that took millions of years to form. Here's a man-made clock embedded inside solid rock. Did that take millions of years to form? I don't think so. What about these rock layers? I mean, look, there's a person down there at the bottom for scale. Surely those took millions of years to be deposited, right? No, those did not exist before 1980, those sediment layers. Not all of them are rock, some of them are loose, but some of them are solid rock. And those were produced in the Mount St. Helens eruption in 1980. They didn't exist before then. And another eruption came through and sloshed a wave in Spirit Lake and cut through those layers and formed a canyon 1/40th the scale of a Grand Canyon in days, maybe hours. It doesn't take millions of years. See, they used to teach these fine laminations that you find in the Grand Canyon, that those are annual. One was laid down and then the next year another was laid down, and you add them up, it's millions of layers and therefore millions of years. Except this isn't from the Grand Canyon. This is from the Mount St. Helens eruption. Those layers were all laid down simultaneously in a matter of hours. Okay, so it doesn't take millions of years. And those are the same kind of laminations you find in the Tepete sandstone, which covers it's found in the Grand Canyon and much of the United States and Canada. It's given different names in different parts of the world, but that's continuous. So whatever deposited those layers was covering the continent. A worldwide flood would do that. We find trees in rocks that are buried vertically, and a lot of them are missing roots. They tend to have a little bit of coal down at the bottom sometimes. I was taught that coal forms over millions of years as peat accumulates in swamps, except we sometimes find impressions of leaves in the coal, so we know what kind of plants were around there, and they're not the plants that are found in swamps. They're the plants that are found in mountain rainforests. So we've been lied to about coal formation. It can happen very quickly. And these trees often don't have roots, which is strange because most trees I know have roots, right? But we now know how that happens because when Mount St. Helens erupted, it did it. The eruption uprooted trees, that's why they don't have roots, and they tended to float in Spirit Lake. They tended to float vertically because of the little remnant of the root that's left in most cases, and then eventually they get waterlogged and sink down, and then sediment would come and cover them up. It doesn't take millions of years. This happened recently. We know how it happens now.